Okay.
So this is Philippe, Satish, and this is Kavita. Thank you so much.
Okay, nice to meet you. What's your name?
Kavita.
And
Philip. Philip. Okay. Hello, Kavita. Nice to see your face on the screen.
Finally.
Got a lovely tree. Is it a lovely tree picture behind you?
No, it's not a picture, Satish. We're under a tree because, as you know, it's the 100th anniversary of Shanti Niketan, and
Yes.
being a big fan of Rabindranath Tagore and
Yes.
the idea of taking the classroom out to nature, we thought it was the right thing to do. It's the
Absolutely. Absolutely. He is my guru. Rabindranath is my guru. And we celebrated his 150th anniversary at Dartington.
Oh,
And
wow.
Dartington was established with the inspiration of Rabindranath Tagore.
Wow, I didn't know that. I thought, oh,
Yes.
wow, that's...
Rabindranath Tagore visited Dartington, and the Schumacher College, where we are at Schumacher College, in that house he stayed.
Oh, wow. So another reason I have to rush there, because
yes,
to me,
yes. So we are continuing the Schumacher College is continuing in the spirit of Rabindranath Tagore.
Well, then we're connected then. So that was our reason, even though this was not the most logical place to have this conference.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But we decided it had to be under a tree because I think we're coming out of this pause, this great pause,
very good.
Reflect. So I don't know if I need to introduce Satish, to be quite honest. There's not words that I could possibly say. I don't know if there's anyone here who doesn't know, but Satish is, I don't know how you define yourself, but I always look at you as a great inspiration of activism. How would you define yourself, Satish?
How do I describe activism?
How would you describe yourself? I said, how do I define you? I know you're an educator, but I always look at you as the great ideal of, a life in activism.
I became an activist at age 18 when I joined Vinoba Bhave, walking through India and asking landlords to give land for the poor. And so from age 18, I have been an activist. And now I am 84 and I'm still an activist.
God bless.
But my activism comes from passion and compassion and love, and not from anger or anxiety or fear.
Wow. That is such a lesson. I think we're coming into an age of activism because we don't have a choice. We've pushed our limits. Our society has pushed the limits of nature to such a point that we actually have, as a society, created tension for our young children, our next generation, and they are full of anxiety and they are full of, this sense of they can't see the light at the end of this tunnel. That's one of the reasons I was so keen for you to be here and for you to speak to us about the hope that you've actually lived this entire life fighting for something. You've been saying the same thing all your life. You've been fighting for it all your life, but you've never lost patience. You've never lost direction. How can we learn from that? So please think, there's so many people listening to us right now, and there's people here, and there will be people, joining later, and plus this is going to go on YouTube. We would love for you to speak to that generation that is frustrated and full of anxiety and can't see the light.
Yes, it will be my pleasure. So should I begin?
It's all yours, Satish.
Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you, Kavita, for your invitation. And it is my pleasure to be with you and be a part of this big event. Now, two things I want to say. First of all, you started asking me about activism. Action is our prerogative. We cannot live without action. All the time, we have to act. Now, motivation behind action is the big question. What is our motivation? Now, there are two kinds of motivation. One is, you can say, we want to act for money, for power, for prestige, for name, for fame, for ego. That's the one reason. Or we want to act for service, for love, for humanity, for mutuality, for reciprocity, and for the upliftment of all living beings. Now, if you are acting out of ego or anxiety or fear, and you are acting to gain something for yourself, then you are not going to be very happy. Because whatever you are expecting, you are not going, things don't work out as you expect. But if you act out of service and out of offering, as we talked about Rabindranath Tagore, his most famous book is Gitanjali. And Gitanjali, Anjali means offering. Offering. So Rabindranath Tagore, our great Indian poet, is making his poetry, his songs, his plays, his education, all as an offering to the world. So if we can act as an offering, we are offering to the world something, what we have, we offer in gratitude, in reciprocity, because we have received so much. We have received from our ancestors. We have received arts, crafts, architecture, philosophy, music, poetry, painting, agriculture, language, religion. You can make a list endless. So now it is our responsibility and our opportunity to offer something back. This great river of culture and great river of humanity, and each and every one of us are a tributary making our offering to the world. So if we act with that passion in our heart for the well-being of the humanity and well-being of the planet Earth, then our activism will make us happy, and it will bring us joy and fulfillment and satisfaction. My great heroes, my great hero activists are people like Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King and Bangari Maathai. If you don't know, I don't know if you know her name. She was a Kenyan woman, and a Petra Kelly, and many great women and men I can list. So all these people, I mean, I had a great fortune and great opportunity to meet Martin Luther King. When I was walking from India to Moscow, Paris, London, Washington, the 4 nuclear capitals of the world, to protest against nuclear weapons and be an activist for peace. At that time, I walked through 15 countries, 8,000 miles, 2.5 years, and I met many people, ordinary people and extraordinary people. But one of the most inspiring person I met, I can say my meeting with Martin Luther King was the highlight of my 8,000-mile journey. And he was an activist. He was dedicated, uncompromisingly, a radical activist. And yet he said, I act out of love. Even I don't hate white people, even those who are racist, who are exploiting us, who are discriminating us, who are subjugating us. I don't hate them because they are also victims of their own prejudice. And I want them to be liberated from their prejudice. That was wonderful. There was music to my ears. When I heard this Martin Luther King speaking like this, he was an embodiment of love, embodiment of justice, embodiment of compassion, an embodiment of radicalism. He said to me that people say, oh, we cannot do this change in our society and we cannot bring racism to an end too quickly. It has to be slowly. And Martin Luther King said, justice delayed is justice denied. You cannot delay justice. You cannot delay. That was his radicalism. and he was prepared to go to jail. He did go to jail. He was in prison for many years. And so people like that. And then there are other many great examples. Similar example, although I never had the opportunity to meet Nelson Mandela, but he was another great activist who was in prison for 27 years. And many opportunities came when people wanted to free him. But he said, no, no, no. I will not want any freedom from this prison until all people of my country are free. End of apartheid. Without that, I want to be in prison. So he stayed in prison for 27 years. So those are my heroes of activism. But I also want to say that activism has many levels. Number one level, which I have already spoken, is to protest. Protest against what is wrong in our society, like colonialism, imperialism, racism, sexism, imperialism, industrialism, materialism, climate catastrophe we are facing, pollution, waste, all these things we have to protest. We have to speak truth to power. We have to stand up for justice and for ecology and for equality and for sustainability and for regenerative culture. That is our first work. So we have to speak truth to power and be fearless and say what we believe in all these values. But that is not only one, every kind of activism. That's not only one. There is another kind of activism. The second activism, I call it. And that is also to protect. Protect what is already good. If you are protecting indigenous cultures, if you are protecting rainforests, if you are protecting animals, if you are protecting arts, crafts, culture, beauty, small farms, small business, communities, there are many, many good things we have in the world. And those wonderful things are being destroyed in the name of development, in the name of progress, in the name of technology, in the name of innovation. So we have to say that no, we want to protect what is good in our society. For example, indigenous cultures and wisdom, they have lived in harmony with the natural world for millennia. And now they are being destroyed. They are being asked to become civilized and be educated in our modern education so that you can become a clerk, you can become a factory worker, you can become an industrial worker, you can live in a city. So that is not the right kind of development and progress that we want. And therefore protecting cultures, arts, crafts, wisdom, beauty, biodiversity, cultural diversity, all these things are also activism. So people who are engaged in protecting the beauty and integrity of our natural world and the beauty and integrity of our human world are also of my heroes. And they need to be celebrated. All the people who are making crafts, people who are making art, people who are growing good food, people are doing organic gardening, people are living simple life. They are my heroes. They are also activists. Activists are not only those who go to prison like Nelson Mandela and Martin Luther King and Mahatma Gandhi and many others. They are wonderful, but they are all the people who are acting at a grassroots level and making good things and maintaining a society in an integral way and a beautiful way. They are also activists and they are my heroes. And the third kind of activism, and that is to create new alternatives, to build new ideas and new ways of. So, for example, Rabindranath Tagore comes in that category. He created a new kind of education at Shanti Niketan. You are sitting under a tree there. He taught his children in his school under the trees. And he said to children that you have to learn from the trees. You have to learn from nature. Nature is our teacher. Nature is our mentor. Nature is not just there as a resource for the economy. Nature is not just there for making money. Nature is not just there for making profit. Nature is our teacher. And therefore, you have two teachers, me as a human teacher and this tree as your nature teacher. So that was creating new alternatives, building alternatives, constructive program, as Mahatma Gandhi called it. And Rabindranath Tagore was an example of that kind of activist. Rabindranath Tagore was not going in the street and protesting. Rabindranath Tagore was not going in prison for the freedom of India, but his work was equally important as the work of Mahatma Gandhi. And Mahatma Gandhi celebrated, and he was a great friend of Rabindranath Tagore. And always he came, and it was Gandhi who named Tagore as Guru Dev, my teacher. And in return, Rabindranath Tagore gave Mahatma Gandhi the name Mahatma. Mahatma name came from Tagore, and Gurudev name came from Gandhi. That is so. So what I'm saying to you, the activism has got many ways, many forms. So protesting, protecting, and building new alternatives and creating new alternative examples. So I'm doing, in a way, I'm trying to do all three. But Schumacher College is a third kind of activism where we have created new kind of education. Our modern education at the moment, in all our schools and universities, were designed for the last century and the century before, for the age of industrialism, for the age of production and consumption, for the age of economy. And so all our young people were trained and educated to go out and find jobs in factories and in shops and in offices and in marketplace. But now, Schumacher College is saying that that is an old kind of education. We are entering a new era, a new age of ecology, new age of sustainability, new age of regenerative culture. So we have to educate our young people for the next century. And the people like Amanda Gorman, who is a Black poet in America and who read poetry at the time of the inauguration of Joe Biden. She is that new kind of generation. Her generation needs a new kind of education. Greta Thunberg, another great activist. She does not want this old kind of education where you are being trained to get a job. She wants the education where you can, how you can protect nature, how you can enhance nature, how you can have a right livelihood so that your economy is a new kind of economy. And so, so creating new alternative constructive program and creating new communities, new ways of growing food, new ways of making craft, new ways of making art, like for example, Andy Goldsworthy in United Kingdom or in Scotland. He is creating a new kind of art where nature and humans become one. You don't have to sit in the studio to make art. He goes out in nature and makes art. That's a kind of new kind of, so I call that artist an activist. He's not just because he's not going in the street and not joining Extinction Rebellion or Friday for the Future, doesn't mean that he's not an activist. So he is as much an activist, Andy Goldsworthy, as anyone else. So my activism has these three levels. Act to protest against what is wrong in society, and act to protect what is good in our culture and in our history and in our world. And then create new, because you have to create new things. Old things wear out, traditions wear out, they run out their energy. So you have to put new energy and new ideas and new inspiration and a kind of create a new way of working. And so arts, crafts, I mean, Mahatma Gandhi in a way created lots of things like that. So activism comes on in many ways. But particularly, I would like to emphasize, as your conference is addressing lots of artists and craftsmen, I would like to emphasize that we all need to be artists. As you know, perhaps, Ananda Kumara Swami, he was a great art historian and a great thinker and a great philosopher from Sri Lanka. And also he lived in India, in Chennai. And he said, an artist is not a special kind of person, but every person is a special kind of artist. So every person has to be an artist. Every person has to live like an artist. What is being an artist? What is being a poet? The Greek meaning, the etymological meaning of the word poet is not just someone who can write beautiful words on a page. Of course, that is a poet. But more than that, the word poet, poiesis, comes from the meaning of making. So anyone who can make something is a poet. But you have to make it with imagination and creativity. You cannot copy. Most of our people who work in offices and factories and shopping malls and so on, they are making copy. They are following rules. They are told what to do in order to make success. There are very few people who have opportunity to be imaginative and creative. Most people are just following the rules. Then you are not a poet. You are not a maker. You are not an artist, not a craftsman. So an artist has to use their imagination, their own creativity, and make something from their own heart. So even if you are doing something which is traditionally made, but you are making it again as if first time you are making. So if you are making something by hand, nothing can be exactly repeated. Some change will happen because of your creativity, because of your imagination. So an artist is not a special kind of person, but every person is a special kind of artist. And we all have to live like an artist. We all have to use our imagination. At the moment, our society does not allow our imagination to flourish and our creativity to blossom. And we are all educated in a very uncreative and non-imaginative way. Our industrial society is almost an enemy of imagination, an enemy of creativity. We don't have, well, Rabindranath Tagore, Kumaraswamy, Indian culture, we say everyone should be encouraged to cultivate their imaginative qualities and the creative qualities and should be able to make something. So making something is not only for the use. Of course, it should be used, but it's also a creative expression. It's like you write a poem. You don't write a poem just for utilitarian purpose. You write for inspiration. You write for spiritual fulfillment. You write for a kind of joy and ananda, joy. And so I would like to see that when you make something, it should have three qualities in order to make it artistic and in order to have a craftsmanship. Three things. First of all, when you make something or you have something, it should be beautiful. Beauty is the food for the soul. Beauty, without beauty, society will perish. It cannot survive in a beautiful way, and a nice way, and people will not be happy. Beauty makes you happy. Beauty is an essential part of our existence. Nature is so beautiful. Flowers, trees, rivers, sunset, clouds, mountains, they're so beautiful. So first principle of being an artist and being imaginative and creative and being craftsman or woman is to embrace the principle of beauty. The second is beauty by itself is not enough. Beauty should not be decorative. Beauty should not be just as a kind of luxury. Beauty should also be useful. Anything you make should be useful. So this is why arts and crafts, for me, paintings are very useful. Guernica, where you live in Madrid, and I came to Madrid to see Picasso's Guernica. That one painting has transformed the consciousness of the world and made peace a big question, a big answer, and a war, a big question mark. And so those kind of work are also very useful. So painting, but also whatever we make, whether it's a clothes or shoes or furniture or house or garden or kitchen, cooking food, whatever you make, if it's beautiful, but also should be useful and not just beauty as a kind of luxury or a kind of decoration. or looking pretty, not that, but something useful. So beautiful, useful. And but also the third aspect of arts and crafts should be, they should be durable. We should not make things throw away, use today and throw it tomorrow. Our industrial culture has a very kind of wasteful culture. We take from nature, use it and throw it away. And single-use plastic, for example, or fashion clothes. We buy this season, this autumn, and next autumn we want a new clothes, new shoes, new computers, new cars. Everything changes. Throw away culture. That is not art. That is not craft. That is not activism. So everything should be made durable. Think, I am sitting on a desk here. This desk was made 200 years ago. And my wife's father inherited it from his father. And then my wife inherited it. And then now my wife is letting me use it. And my children can inherit it. So that kind of durability should be an integral part of arts and crafts and making. And so I said these three things: beautiful, useful, and durable. I call it the bud principle, B-U-D, the bud principle. Remember the bud principle. Is it beautiful? Is it useful? Is it durable? If it is, it's perfect. It's an activism. It's a true activism. If it's not beautiful, it's not useful, it's not durable, it's not activism. So this is my idea of, so everybody, I want to create a society of artists and craftsmen. I want a society where everybody is an artist, the crafts person, woman, man, woman, and also that way every person is an activist. So I don't want activism to be limited to a few people who can go in the street and demonstrate for Extinction Rebellion or climate change or Greta Thunberg. I want everybody to be part of this activism. But activism comes in many, many ways. And this is why I have tried to explain to you that you can be an activist by protesting, you can be activist by protecting, you can be an activist by building and creating, and you can create something which is beautiful, useful, and durable. And that way you can be an artist. Everybody in the world, every human being in the world should be an artist. We are all born artists. We are makers. We are not just consumers. This industrial materialistic system has turned us into mere consumers. And the consumerism is not our prerogative. When you make something, when you cook your food, you can eat it. When you grow your food in the garden, you can harvest it and you can have a fruit. You make your clothes, then you can wear it. Consumption comes after making. But if you don't participate in the making, in creating, in imagining, then you are just a consumer. And that culture is bringing so many problems today. We have a climate change and we have pandemic. This pandemic is caused by our consumerism and our broken down relationship with the natural world. And humanity has been encroaching more and more on nature, and wildlife has been diminishing, and biodiversity has been diminishing. So the lesson of this pandemic is to repair the relationship between humans and the natural world, the wild world, the forest and the animals and the rivers and the oceans. They should be holy. They are sacred. They should be celebrated, not exploited for money and profit, and not to be polluted with plastic and chemicals and fertilizers and a bad air. And so this is my, in nutshell, so my idea that we are all activists, we are all artists, and let's make a new world of living simply, living beautifully, and living creatively, so that our economy becomes a cyclical economy, and our economy becomes a circular economy, and everything we take from nature goes back to nature and becomes a regenerative culture and a regenerative economy. Thank you very much, Kavita and Philip, for the opportunity to speak to you.
Guru, Satya Guru.
Thank you, thank you.
I am so grateful. I would love for Lee, who's Very moving, guys, to see her cry. You have no idea how much we needed to hear you speak, Satish. You have
Oh,
no
you
idea.
are, it's my pleasure. You are very welcome.
Thank you so much. This is very moving. This is very needed. This was exactly what we wanted to hear in the best possible succinct words. It's a manifest of sorts. We hope we can use it for the World Home Forum as a mantra and a motto and a guide for the future. And we thank you very much, all of us.
You are my pleasure.
I'm going to see if anybody here, I don't know. I feel so overwhelmed. I have no questions. You've cleared my mind, Satish. I mean, if I am so grateful, like you must have been grateful when you met Martin Luther King. For me, this is the moment for me. I will remember the B-U-D, the bud, the flower. That I will remember for the rest of my life. Namaskar. Bahut shukriya. I'm going to speak to, I see if anybody wants to ask Satish a question that we have him here, and we have the luxury to be able to speak to him. So anyone at all who needs to ask him a question, though I think the clarity with which he has given us his message has been magical. You know, it's so hard sometimes. I think you come from the generation where you know about the long term, you understand the long term. And I think there's a lot of us who are impatient, who get frustrated, and just to hear that message from you has meant so much, with such clarity and with such, I don't know, I feel like right now I'm going to cry for sure, because my heart is full and I'm so grateful. And I can tell you that I would want to do the pilgrim to walk to Schumacher College to see you.
Yes, yes. You'll be very welcome. Please come. And I have written a book called Pilgrimage for Peace. This is a story of my walk from India to Moscow, Paris, London, Washington, and then after that meeting Martin Luther King. So it's a new book. I've written it after 60 years of my walking, because I mean, originally I wrote it in Hindi in India, but then recently I more or less translated it and retold the story. And so it now has come in English called Pilgrimage for Peace. And that is a journey without any money. For 2.5 years, I did not touch any money. And I went through Muslim countries, Christian countries, communist countries, capitalist countries, rich countries, poor countries. And everywhere I was depending on the generosity of the strangers and ordinary people in the villages and towns and cities everywhere. And that's how, when I met Martin Luther King, because he gave a big speech called "I Have a Dream." And my dream is that one day all of humanity can live together in harmony without all this discrimination and segregation. And so so that book tells you more or less all the story. If any of your listeners want to get a copy, they can have it. They can buy it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Satish. We're all eternally grateful. We needed this shot of vitamin, Satish.
Okay. Thank you.
To go out and face the world. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
I cannot, honestly, I think I see so many people crying in the audience that I cannot. Just so that you know, you've filled our hearts and we are eternally grateful.
Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.